All right. I keep noticing everybody likes throwing around this very specific term, fascism. And they keep talking about, they keep doing this thing of the racists, the fascist reactionary movement. And the thing, I just, then uh, his mother's of Hispanic. No, I don't want to update thing on Relative, and you knew the import of the unions to the Democratic Party, and notoriously violent. And you knew something about the British Fascist Party, and you might wonder, like, it's really odd. It's sort of like they're normal people who just were living, and then there would be people who were in the unions, and they would beat people up with pipes. They really seemed to have a problem if you didn't hire people who were in unions. They would burn your factory down. They would do all kinds of stuff, and then the courts would just Jewish. So he couldn't have been into some kind of syndicalist, violent workers movement. When Jews praised Mussolini and supported Nazis, meet Israel's first fascists. From Haaretz.com. Let's see. This would have been. Let me see if I can actually. Let's scroll down and find this. Some worrying component of Hebrew fascism. It couldn't be that maybe this has something to do with the real. He's obviously such a well-read person. I want to make sure everybody else knows, because English being his second language, he must have read all of this in Turkish when he was young. Dan Tamir, July 20th, 2019. Fascism is not a product for export. Benito Mussolini, 1925. That is a group called the Brit Habiyonim, revisionist underground. Remember, it's the journalists who get to tell us how history went. A mixture of repulsion and fascination was the reaction of many to the advertisement in the last election campaign. Fictional perfume, all in all, and the message was obvious. But her adversaries, smelling clip as we know, did not salvage Ayelet Shaked's campaign. Her party, Hayamin Hadash, did not cross the electoral. Fascism can be smelled at all. Has there ever been fascism in Israel? And if so, is it on its way back? Among communist left, there is a common tendency to see fascism within every as an extreme form of modern capitalism. In right-wing circles, in contrast, as a curse that is to be evaded. That sounds like what I typically hear from white Christians who are right-wing, who I talk to a lot and have lots of presentations. The kind of persistent suspicion that must be rebuffed is exemplified by the much discussed perfume clip. But what is fascism? What sets it apart from other writing? The Anatomy of this writer translated that book into Hebrew, listed 7 features that collectively might delineate the nature of fascism as an ideology, and that actually was written by one of its chief thinkers in Italy. You could get it on Amazon.com by a Kindle for a song, so you could know who these people thought. They were extremely popular because both Mussolini and Hitler were praised by Time magazine with they are, but everybody knows this. They are certainty in the supremacy of the group, national, ethnic, or every right of the individual, and the individual's subordination to the group. Belief, wait, that almost sounds like Black Lives Matter. Belief that the group in question is a victim, that sounds more like Black Lives Matter. As a consequence of which there is justification for every action taken against its enemies. Sounding pretty Black Lives Matter to me. Domestic or external, real or imagined. fear of harm befalling the group from liberal tendencies or foreign influences from outside, the need for closer on the group's right to rule others without any limitations, a right accruing to the group, belief in the need for the authority of a lone and solitary leader, and obedience to that leader based on the conviction that he possesses supernatural insights or capabilities. Yeah, because as we know, Patrice Cullors being fascinated with Gnostic spiel about hearing that was philosophy that she was basing this on. No, she was in touch with her ancestors. Another trait that would add its fierce opposition to socialism in all its form, a characteristic that was especially apparent in the practice of the phenomena most typically identified as fascist are associated with the regimes that were headed by Benito Mussolini. Black or brown shirts couldn't be happening. That could happen here. I mean, everybody knows about it could never happen here because so many people are so well read. The effective elimination of the legislature, the reorganization of the entire economy, and ostensibly harmony, persecution of real or imagined domestic enemies, you know, like all those people who burned down the Capitol building. Oh, wait. No, that guy in that weird costume didn't do anything like that. Nobody else did. Detention camps, mass executions, mobilization of the entire nation, and finally an external war that leads to utter destruction in the case of Italy and Germany. Indeed, Mussolini's Fascist Party and Hitler's National Socialist Party were the only two fascist organizations that were, for their part, successful in consolidating themselves, establishing a significant public of supporters and political might, achieving power, forming a new regime, finally, and leading their countries whose apparatuses they undermined and which they damaged from within into a horrific. The puppet regimes the occupiers set up in Europe survived only thanks to the bayonets of the Italian and German armed forces and collapsed immediately upon their eviction. I guess they're talking about Ukraine, Belarus, maybe Japan, and I guess the Vichy France. And the only reason why the French were even able to be taken over is because nobody would reprint Mein Kampf in French. So when the Jews showed up and said, Hitler is coming for you, just like he did us, people turned on the German Jews who were refugees in France. But that requires a bit of reading. However, in the period following World War I, many other groups and movements were active. Oh, maybe we'll get to this. Mainly in Europe, though elsewhere as well. Oh boy, who ever heard? Wow, we're learning things now. I hope some of Hasan Piker's fans will not see this, because then their whole worldview might suddenly be tilting and like an apple cart with only 3 wheels. They were created and operated according to the fascist model. Groups that sought to respond to like needs and to apply similar models in their policy. The Rexists in Belgium, new to me actually, under Leon de Grelle. Vidkun Quisling's National Rally. Oh, that's Quisling. Finally. Okay, no, for real, that's one. In Norway, the Hungarian Iron Cross, Corneliu Cudranu's Legion of the Archangel Michael. In Romania, the Phalange of Jose Antonio Primo de Rivera. In Spain, the British Union of Fascists, established by Oswald Mosley, and the Syrian Socialist Nationalist Party, founded by Antoun Saadeh in Lebanon. Gonna have, okay, legit, that one there's some reading I've done that now that just connected something. These are only a few examples of movements that not only operated in the style and with methods of Mussolini and Hitler, but also sought to establish similar regimes in their countries. Each of the movements mentioned above bore distinctive characteristics, and each pursued a slightly different political strategy in accordance with the political climate, the structure of the regime, and social codes amid which it acted. None of them, however, succeeded like their later counterparts in Italy and Germany. Pardon me. In fact, In the 1920s and 1930s, fascism was a political phenomenon that cropped up and operated in almost every modern mass society that was afflicted by a deep crisis at the time. What? Compared to the protracted horror of the Western Front in World War I, or to the battle saturated with blood of myriads in Eastern Europe, both in that war and during the emergency immediately after, the outer reaches of the Ottoman Empire were relatively quiet. However, the trepidations stemming from World War I, including the disillusion of the old political order and the economic and social dislocations that followed, and the exile of whole populations to privation and hunger, with the addition of extensive killing and murderous actions, and culminating in the total collapse of a generation's old political order, which was supplanted by a new imperial British administration that preserved certain features of the old order, but also precipitated processes of modernization that affected the society, the economy, and politics. Wait, modernization, it's almost like what they're referring to. As an American who's read something about our history, I would think of that as the progressives, which were the Democratic Party that ended up liking people like Wilson and FR. It's interesting because journalists hate the guy in between there, Herbert Hoover, if I remember correctly, who was more into private industry and not central planning. And I think this would also coincide with political establishment and limited belief in the ability of the British mandatory authorities to provide protection and support for the populace, sparked a search for new political answers in Europe, some founded in fascism. A fascist group gradually took shape in the revisionist Zionist group. The beginning was modest, like many others in the mid-1920s. Itamar ben Avi, the son of Eliezer ben Yehuda. Interesting. I'm going to have to go do a little bit of digging, because you see something about that's reminding me of, was it, I want to say, no, that's a different guy. Benjamin, just for a second, to wax a little seriously, the Secretary of War of the Confederacy was an open Jew, and after the Civil War, he escaped to Europe. The reviver of the editor of the newspaper Dar Hayom expressed a liking and even admiration for Mussolini and his actions. Unlike other journalists at the time, he longed for a strong, assertive leader in the issue. Found him in the person of Zev Jalokinsky, another such person, a novice commentator who began his political and journalistic career in socialist circles. What? Socialist circles? But I'm so confused. Much confusion. Isn't it right wing? And at the newspaper of the, what? Left wing? Oh, no. Oh, my heavenly stars. What's here? Hapoel Hatzair organization, and who was by late 1920s writing a regular column titled "From the Notebook of a Fascist." Was sorry, just I mean, yeah. The Green Giants trio, leaders of the maximalist faction revisionist movement, were given expression in the press. Which became the People's Front, midsections and odd piercings and tattoos, and a best enterprise. They saw this as a whole, and the Zionists in particular as historical victims and also in the battlefields of World War I in Yevin's words. Accordingly, they had also contempt for liberals, moderates, and whoever harbored notions of compromises with either the Arabs or the British. So I wonder if they were some, like, the liberals get used against socialists and communists, but also against liberals and opponents in general. So they were just beating up everything. They're just like, let's just start beating everybody up. Dovetailed well with their fondness for extreme right circles in Europe. And I love how they're making sure it's definitely right wing, though. it's definitely, it's collectivizing people is always definitely right-wing unless it's socialist. They made no secret of their aspiration for a single adored leader. In a meeting of the revisionist movement in Vienna in the summer of 1932, another member of the group, Wolfgang von Weissel, proposed that Jabotinsky declare the movement's supreme leader and vested with ultimate unlimited authority. Jabotinsky rejected the idea. Brit Habir Yonim fell apart at the end of 1933 when Ahimeyer and two other revisionist activists, Zvi Rosenblatt and Avraham Stadsky, were accused of assassinating Chaim Arlosorov, a labor Zionist. Labor Zionism, ding ding, look it up, Wikipedia, leader in June of that year. Ahimeyer's, boy, I wonder if he was put on a no-fly list and he didn't ape. But maybe they didn't have airlines then. And sentenced to 2 years in prison. Doar Hayom was also shut down and ceased publications. Its Axis ties. Well, this is getting more fascinating by the second. Brit Habib was active for only a short time, but its partial support for Hitlerite politics in Germany in the spring of 1933 was of shorter duration. A few members of the movement even carried out a protest against the Nazi government and stole the swastika-bearing flag from the German consulate in Tel Aviv. In contrast, the revisionist movement's ties with Mussolini's regime lasted until at least 1938. So it's sort of like these were different ways of thinking. One was a bunch of race-based collectivism, such as what we would think is Völkisch socialism, and another was something called fascism, which seemed to be apparently Israelis. When Italy enacted the revisionist naval rule, which operated from 1935 to 1937 in the town of, oh boy, Civita Vecchia, under the auspices of Italian fascist regime. Additionally, revisionists were students in Italian universities. Oh, well, now isn't that weird? And that one is deep to know about, a whole other realm. Who, upon returning to Palestine after his studies, published a book, Mussolini, His Personality and Doctrine, the flattering biography of Il Duce, the Duke, who is called the Duke of Socialism, also included a selection of letters. Kolitz's residence in Italy